Welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day with one of our sensational Kiwis. He's done it all. He's won all the Challenge Cups in the UK, and obviously he was our first captain of the Auckland Warriors back in the day. It's the one and only Dean Bell. How are you, man?
Hey, Dave, mate, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm 63 now, so 30 years ago I was 33, walking out the tunnel in front of that big, crazy crowd, and yeah, great memories for me anyway.
It's an absolute honour and a privilege to have you on the show. I'm absolutely pinching myself. Shout out to Steve Coles who flicked me your telephone number, so I do appreciate that. And yeah, absolutely brilliant to have you here. So, mate, what have you been up to? Dean Bell, what you been doing with yourself of late?
Well, actually, I've got a job. Just like everybody else, you need a job. I work for Harbour Hospice, so I'm a storeman. So a storeman stroke truck driver. Yeah, so it's just a really obviously worthwhile cause that I work for, and keeps me busy, keeps me on my toes, and mostly keeps me fit because I'm like a lot of ex-players. I like my food and I like a drink now and then as well.
Mate, you and I cut from the same cloth. I'm a storeman. I'm a forklift driver for the Fonterra. Before that, I drove trucks and delivered goods, and that's all I've done since I was basically 17 years old. So, and I love a quiet beer as well, just quietly. So, so let's rewind the clock, mate. Dean Bell, where'd you grow up? What was life like for you as a young fella, and how did that journey into rugby league begin?
Well, I grew up in Otawa in South Auckland, and my dad was a dock worker. He worked on the Manukau Harbour. My mum just did little bits of jobs that she could do, just to make ends meet. And I started playing rugby league when I was 4 years of age. It was a sport that a lot of my relatives, because my dad was one of 12. So yeah, so his mother was a full Maori lady, and his father was full Scottish. So that's quite a unique combination. So that's where I reckon I get my aggression from anyway.
Two very aggressive coaches there, when they're mad.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah, I'd play rugby league wherever I could, and I'd go to Carlisle Park, and I was going to say I used to watch the games at Carlisle Park, but I was too busy playing footy on the bank, just give me a ball, give me a sock, give me anything I could play footy with, and it was just, I was a bit of a footy nut, to be fair.
Awesome, man. So did you basically start with the Magpies, the Manukau Magpies, right from day dot through the junior grades and progress through?
Yeah, no, just right from the start. Yeah, 4 years of age, I played for the under fives, I think, and just all the way through till under 17s, and then from under 17s, I went straight into the premiers. So, which was, I mean, I had a lot of good. I had a few relatives around me that could look after me back then, but you wouldn't say that was a great transition from a 17-year-old into premiers. But I sort of, I had a few knocks, and it sort of toughened me up a little bit more.
Man, I'd say you would have had quite a few knocks in the Auckland comp back then. Lots of Kiwis running around, like lots of hardened men who'd been playing for years, I'd imagine. So how did you manage to protect yourself? Did you just have natural talent and speed to burn to get around all the big fellas?
Well, speed was a big part of my makeup, wasn't it? So yeah, and I didn't mind the rough stuff either, to be fair.
Yeah.
So it was like something that was pretty natural for me. All you have to do is, and it's like a lot of transitioning from junior footy to senior footy. You just got to get used to the speed of the game. Okay. That's just like it's to this day that's the same thing when you move up from maybe reserves to NRL. It's just the same.
Okay, so was it rugby league? Did you have your eyes on the ultimate goals of playing for the Kiwis or playing in the UK right from a young age? Was sort of that the only thing you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was, to be fair. I wasn't employment wise that ambitious as far as that because I just wanted to play rugby league, but I didn't even know you could play for money. I mean, well, I just wanted to play. You know what I mean? I didn't really know how I was going to make ends meet, but yeah, I left school when I was 16. I worked at the freezing works like a lot of rugby league players did back then. I had 4 a.m. shifts. I would do a lot of different stuff, and then I worked for a retread company called Bandag. My dad thought it might be good sort of working in all the areas of that company and try and get a management job because, he wanted me to sort of, do something worthwhile. And then rugby league took over, basically. I found out then that you could get paid. It wasn't a lot of money back in those days, but it was enough to, fly me over to the UK or Australia or wherever I wanted to play.
Okay, amazing. So did you make the Auckland side during your time with the Magpies? Obviously quite young in your career. Did you make that step up?
Yeah, I did actually. And I think my first one would have been when I was about 18 years of age. I actually didn't play, but I remember they took me over for an Amco Cup game. And
Okay.
just for a bit of experience, they could obviously see some promise in me, and they thought that would be a good eye opener for me, and it was. We had a star-studded team, the likes of James Orwai, Fred Arcoy, my uncle Ian Bell, Lindsay Proctor, just like the list goes on and on and on. But I think they played South Sydney that particular night, and I think South Sydney put 40 points on us. But such was the ARL back in those days. It was a pretty different game.
So that would have been what would that have been, early 80s, somewhere around
there?
there?
Yeah, it would have been sort of really early 80s, actually.
Yeah.
Or even just maybe around 1980 itself, something like that.
Oh, wow. Going way back to the Amco.
Yeah, so that was, obviously, but it just showed me the level that you needed to be at, to be fair.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed that challenge too, because I didn't mind sort of working hard. I mean, that's probably a big. I never saw myself as being really multi-talented, but I knew that I could work hard and make myself a better player. And yes, speed was a natural part of my game, but also there was, as you know, there's a lot more to the game than that. And I was only a skinny kid from South Auckland, so I had to put a bit of muscle on. And I remember when I first played for the Kiwis, I was something like 79 kilos. So
Oh, wow.
Even halfbacks these days are a lot more than that in the NRL. So, but yeah, I wasn't afraid of hard work. So yeah, I made those gains that I needed to.
Absolutely brilliant. So obviously it all paid off. You made the move to the UK in 1982, signing with Carlisle. So how did this opportunity arise, and were you daunted at all about moving over to the UK?
No, I was excited. I mean, I went over there with my uncle Ian Bell and my cousin Clayton Friend. And
you did.
with the three of us going over, it sort of made it a little bit easier. We had each other to lean on, and obviously to share our experiences. Yeah. But it just came about where actually Mark Robinson's dad, Dave Robinson, who was the managing director of Ortex, and they were the main sponsors of the Kiwis back in those days. And he was a person that had some contacts in the UK. And so he put us together with a number of clubs, and there was interest from the likes of St. Helens and Warrington, and I didn't know any of those teams. But we remember talking to Shane Varley, our old Kiwi halfback, who by the way hasn't been very well lately. He's he's been into a little bit of strife with his health, but hopefully he's on the road to recovery. And we're just talking to Shane, who's a good mate of ours, and he said, well, Carlisle seems like a good club. They were in this, their first year of playing rugby league, and they've got promoted. So they came second, and the top two went up back in those days, and the top two went down, basically. And we thought, oh, yeah, new club, Carlisle, might be quite exciting. And that's how it all started, that we went over there. Right. So if it wasn't for Shane, I wouldn't have met my wife, who I met on the first day I was there.
Oh wow, that was meant to be, mate. That was meant to be. What a brilliant payoff.
Well, I think so.
You think so? I love it. Okay, so how did you find the UK competition in comparison to what you're used to in New Zealand and the Auckland Cup? Was it tough playing the big British boys?
Yeah, it was. And you know what? Because they were putting together a brand new side. A lot of probably the really experienced British players that maybe were past their prime, they signed quite a few of those to play for Carlisle with us, you see. So that was really, really important for my development. And I mean, not always positive sometimes. I mean, I remember them drinking whiskey or red wine before a game because they reckon that'll warm them up ready for the game. I'm not too sure about that. And some of the bus trips home, I couldn't say too much on screen here. So just crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, it just but you picked up that experience that they had, and it was sort of that was so valuable to my development as a player.
Well, it absolutely paid off again because it was only a year later you made your Kiwis debut against the Kangaroos. You're coming into the team with Mark Graham, the Sorensen brothers, Mark Broadhurst up front. You had Ronnie Regan in there, another champion I've been able to chat to on this podcast. So how did you find out you were making your debut? Was it special to know you're going to represent your country and also at home at Carlisle Park?
Yeah, I had missed out the year before, which might have been a blessing because I had a really bad knee injury just before the trial that we had. And so I missed out on that. And while I was disappointed, when it came time for the naming of the team the next year, I was really up for just sort of putting myself forward for selection. And when I heard my name, that was a dream come true. I mean, I think I remember. I think we might have heard it on the radio. That's how it was done in those days, And I was very pleased, and obviously I made my family very proud, which a big thing. And I was able to join, the likes of my cousin Clayton Friend, who had made it the year before, and Ian, who had also played quite a few number of tests in the years before that. So it was nice, the three of us sort of, playing for the Kiwis. It was nice for their family to get that kind of recognition.
Very special. And how did you feel when you walk into the team for the first time? You're still quite young, and you've got your Mark Grahams and the like sitting there. Do you just sit there in awe and looking at like New Zealand's finest? They've been some of our greatest players of all time. And how did you feel as a youngster getting into?
No, I was probably a little bit cheeky back in those days, so it didn't really bother me too much. I mean, I had more concerns on who I was marking. I was marking Kerry Bostad.
Oh God!
Who was, he was like a whippet. He was just so fast, and he's a sort of player that actually could stop immediately, then take off again. And so, I was a bit more concerned about my opposition rather than my teammates. But I mean, throughout my career, I've been so lucky, and I think a lot of people with success, it is about timing. And I had such great timing, and when I made the Kiwis, because there'd been a lot of I suppose, disappointing results in the few years before. The Australians were very dominant. Even though we had good players, I don't know, something was missing. And I think that something was Graeme Lowe, because he brought the best out in us as Kiwi players, and we loved to play for him.
Absolutely, you did. He got you guys up over Australia in your second test match, winning 1912. And like you said about your opposition, Mal Meninga, Wally Lewis, Eric Grove, Steve Ella, Fatty Vaughan, Ray Price, just to name a few. And you guys got up finally, 19-12. How amazing was that?
Yeah, well, I remember Graeme Lowe the night before, and this was funny because the coaches back in those days, we only had VHS machines to work with and VHS tapes, right? So, and none of my coaches that I remember could actually work it properly and get it on the right spot and things like that, which was difficult back in those days, to be fair. And anyway, he played this, it was actually the gold medals of the rowing eight. What was it, back in 78 or something like that, in the Olympics? Mm-hmm. And he said, there's no sound on here. He says, but I just want you to look at their faces and see the emotion. And nearly every one of the rowing eight were crying when they were getting the gold medals put over their heads.
Wow.
And afterwards, and I'm thinking to myself, what's that got to do with us? We're going to face, Mal Meninga and Wally Lewis the next day, and what's that got to do with it? He said, see that emotion? Those are tears of victory. Those are tears of joy. Tomorrow, when we play the Aussies, you can experience that. But he says there's one thing that you have to do, and that's just play the best game of your life for you to be able to do that. And obviously, when we won, to a man, nearly everyone was crying in the changing sheds afterwards. So, yeah, very, very special moment.
Oh, how inspirational with Graeme Lowe. He got you boys up, and it was just a coach that, like you said it, he got the best out of players. He did it for so many teams as well across his career. What a great man.
I know he was ahead of his time. He was going to America watching the NFL teams long before anybody else was,
Right.
I just got so much time for him, and obviously there was a big reason why I went to Wigan as well.
Exactly. And just continuing on with your Kiwis, you scored a hat-trick against Papua New Guinea, a huge win. You and Hugh McGann went crazy, scoring 9 tries between you. What was it like playing Papua New Guinea? Really tough side. Were they as tough as everyone says they are, even though you gave them a bit of a hiding that day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, they're a lot tougher in PNG on their home soil. Yeah, so, man, I didn't do it very often because I think I was injured on a couple of the tours over there, but I went over there one time and played them in Port Moresby. And, we had to walk down the pitch before the game, getting all the stones off the pitch. The spectators were lighting fires in the trees, and there was smoke going all over the place. It was crazy. It was really crazy. And we were very close to losing that game too, and I'm glad we didn't, because, I mean, it was a tough one. And I suppose, that you can't have it all your own way, the beautifully manicured fields and things like that. So it was a good test for us. And I think we came through despite, losing a lot of skin off our knees and our elbows. So
yeah, there's bad fields, and then there's like next level Papua New Guinea fields.
Experience. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I missed those other 2 tours that I never went on. So.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. Right, 1983, you moved to Leeds. How did the transfer come about? What did the club offer you to get you over the line, and did you want to stay at Carlisle, or was it a case of you were moving on? And what did the contract look like back then? Now, a lot of questions there, but
okay, I'll try and remember. If I don't, just remind me, will you?
No, you're all good.
It's usually only one at a time that I'm good with. The contracts back in those days, I mean, we got our airfares over to Carlisle, for instance, and we shared a place. It was a terrace place at the bottom of the town in Carlisle. So the 3 of us had a room each, a bedroom each, which was good. And we shared a car with our names on it. So it had the Carlisle Kiwis and all the 3 of our names on there. So, and we had to get a job. So, I worked down at the stadium, just sweeping up after the football games and the rugby games, the rugby league games. So, and just doing little chores for, the directors and things like that. And, but we were on, I think, £1,000 after we'd played 20 games.
Oh wow!
Right?
Is that it?
Well, back in those days, we had a few sort of bills, because everybody was ringing home. Not me so much, but Clayton's family was back in New Zealand, and so was my Uncle Ian's family. So, but back in those days, it was £1 a minute on the phone.
Oh wow!
Right. So most of our £1,000 that we still hadn't got was going to go on the bills that we owed. And but anyway, so once we played 20 games, the club had run out of money.
Oh no!
So we actually left early, and I reckon it would have been. I'll give this to Carlisle and the people that were involved back in those days. I would say it was probably a year later we received our £1,000.
Oh, good on them. Good on them.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the time you hear, especially UK clubs, they don't pay up.
We were surprised, but I think that just showed that, they obviously valued us as players and as people, and just wanted to honour what they said they were going to give us.
Okay, so is that how you became available to transfer to Leeds.
Yeah, well, I played really well against Leeds, and especially at Headingley. So obviously, I caught the eye of the coaching staff there, um, and Leeds was a big club, and I mean, Carlisle were, they were struggling financially, etc. So there was no future left there. So I'd have to make a choice, and I knew a little bit about Leeds. I didn't realise how big a city it was, but yeah, I went and played there, and we won. I think it was something like 17 games in a row from my first game. And so it was a yeah, you know what the game was that we lost was a Challenge Cup semi-final.
Ouch.
Right.
Ouch.
So I was one game away from Wembley, and I know that you don't take it for granted getting to Wembley because it may never happen. A lot of great players have played the game for many years and not played at Wembley. So yeah, I was really disappointed. But at the same time, again, great experience playing with a lot of very experienced Leeds players as well. So, yeah, I was lucky that I got to that experience in such a quick time in my career, really.
Yeah, sure, man. Sure. So you also went on to be witness in the final of the John Player Special Trophy during your
Yeah.
time with Leeds. How special was it? You missed out on Wembley, but you won your first major trophy in a Leeds jersey.
Yeah, I
How
mean,
amazing
it's
was that?
not going to make up for playing at Wembley.
No, it's not, but it's something.
Yeah. Well, it was at Wigan, funny enough,
Funny.
of all places. I didn't know much about Wigan either, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, it was nice to win something, of course. And but yeah, I think in my own heart, though, I knew I needed, and this is where you may continue, is I needed to go and play in the Australian competition.
Yes, well, just before I talk about the suburbs, Roosters, Eastern Suburbs, I was going to mention about your clean sweep of the British touring side here in New Zealand. You won 3-0. Twice at Carlisle Park you played. You scored a try down here in Christchurch, where I am, at Addington, famous Addington Showgrounds. So, you played a lot of superstars in the British side. Ellery Hanley, everyone knows who he is. Brian Noble, Andy Gregory. How amazing was it to clean sweep the British?
Yeah, I mean, actually, so you're from down in mainland, are you?
I am. I was a North Island boy till about 3 years ago, and
Oh yeah.
I made home in Christchurch. Yeah, absolutely love it.
Well,
So do
I
consider
reckon
myself a Cantab now.
out, out of all the places I've played, and obviously I've played many a winter in the UK,
Yep.
I reckon when that test that we played down there in Christchurch was the coldest game I've ever played in. Honestly. And I remember after the game too that we went back to the changing rooms ready for a hot shower, and the bloody showers were cold. So yeah, but yeah, the games itself, yeah, a three sweep against a really good British team. Yeah, I mean, you've got to take it for what it is, and yeah, but we just had some really good players back in those days. Your Hugh McGanns, your Kurt Sorensens, Dane. Fred Coy, James Zuluwai, Gary Campbell, Dane O'Hara, I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. And the thing about us, and it was very much like my Wigan team, is that we were very honest with each other, that we didn't want to let each other down. And that was a big thing. And even now, when you go and see your mates, and you don't see them for years, but you straight away, you enjoy each other's company because you know that you didn't let them down when it really mattered in tough games.
Nice, man. Nice. That's what it's all about, turning up for your teammates, giving it 100%, and hopefully everyone puts in and you get the result. I mean,
that's right.
So, as you mentioned, you went off to Australia. You signed with the Eastern Suburbs Roosters in the Winfield Cup, 1985. You had Olsen Filipina there, Hugh McGann. I mean, how special was that to play with those two? How did you wind up at the Roosters? Like, how did that happen?
Well, it was, to be fair, it was obviously the Roosters had shown some interest. There's a couple of other clubs that shown interest. But back in those days, the New Zealand Rugby League had a transfer fee on us.
Oh, yes, the old transfer fee.
Right, the old transfer fee, yeah. So, and that was something like 30 grand. So, it was a decent bit of money. So really, it came down to the team that was willing to pay it. you know.
Okay.
And yeah, but again, I mean, I probably the first year at the Roosters, I played some good footy, and it was just a massive transition. I mean, I remember our first game was against our arch rivals. I was going to say enemies, but rivals, South Sydney.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it was just the craziest experience I've ever had. I mean,
Really?
yeah. Well, I mean, just the intensity of the game, the way, you know, the sledging that was going on. You know, they're talking about your mother this and, you know, doing that to your wife and all this sort of stuff was going on. I'm thinking, I hope this is not like this every week. You know, but yeah, I think it was just mainly the you know, the Roosters and the Rabbitohs rivalry that sort of come to the fore. But yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it was a bit like a red rag to a bull with me. So, you know,
Yeah.
I gave as good as I got, and yeah, and then you get used to it, and then that first year was good, but then unfortunately, in my second year, I suffered an injury on my knee again that I had sort of previously, and it would blow up after each game, and then
Oh
on the
dear.
Saturday before the Sunday game, I would go to the doctor. He would take the fluid out, put some cortisone in. You know, just things that you wouldn't even think about doing these days. But, you know, you
Oh
do what you
wow.
can to make the field. And so, yeah, and then, I mean, it was a great experience. Obviously, the Roosters, you know, it's massive club. But I just, it came to a stage where they were deciding whether they were going to sign me on for that third year or not. And obviously, from an injury point of view, they might have had their doubts, but I sort of made their minds up for them because I
Okay.
thought going to the UK, back to the UK, might be better for the knee that I was carrying at the time, and
Okay.
the softer fields, etc. And that's how I ended up back there. But the Roosters itself was a great experience for me.
I bet it was. But when you arrived at the Roosters, you know, because there's very few Kiwis playing in the Winfield Cup back in those days. How did they treat you as a Kiwi? And you know, coming in with an Australian side, like there had to be a bit of earn your stripes or a little bit of. But did they ostracize you at all? I'd love to know.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, even even your own teammates, you know, didn't like you being there because I remember one of their wives saying, you know, Dean, he says, you're actually, you know, we'd had a few drinks one night and you're actually taking my husband's place.
Oh wow! How do you
Right.
feel at that moment?
Yeah, well, I just said, well, he's got to play better than me and you get it back again, can't he?
Right,
Right.
so you got a pretty thick skin.
Oh, yeah, it was very anti-New Zealand in a lot of ways. You know, these Kiwis this, these Kiwis that, and I sort of understand, but that's that rivalry again between Australia and New Zealand, isn't it?
Man, you must shake your head now when you look at how like Polynesian flavour the NRL is now. Like you paved the way, mate. You paved the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, someone had to, I suppose, but yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Right. So 1986, you signed with the Wigan Warriors. How did all that come about? Well, you kind of said it was through your injuries, right? Did you
Yeah,
actually still go back to the Roosters and sort of play an off season in the UK and then back to
yeah,
Australia and then back to the
yeah.
UK? Like that must have been pretty full on.
I did. I mean, back in those days, that's just what you did basically.
Right.
And I mean, I wouldn't recommend it playing 12 months of the year, but yeah, I went back and played after my first season at Wigan. But how I got to Wigan was actually I actually said yes to Leeds,
Okay.
right? Yep. But then something happened, which was Wigan announced Graeme Lowe as their coach,
Right.
right? And they
That's
basically
really
said, yeah, basically they said, you know, we want you to put this team together that we all want to be proud of, and you know, and so Graham's first phone call was to me, and I
right.
said, oh, I said, Lowy, I said, I've just said yes to Leeds. I hadn't signed anything. I said, but I just
Okay.
said yes. And he says, Dean, he says, I want you to be part of, you know, what they're doing here at Wigan. They're really creating something special, and I want you to be part of that with me.
Okay.
And I thought, well, this is going to be the first time I've ever gone back on my word. And so I had to ring up the chairman at the time, a guy called Harry Gibson, and I said, Harry, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, but I've got him going to Wigan. And it just shows too, sometimes it's not all about money.
Yep.
I actually thought I'd win more games if I went to Wigan.
Okay.
right? And the money was less at Wigan. I remember all I could get out of Morris Lindsay was 20 grand for the year, and Leeds had offered me 25.
Okay.
So for a young guy with a new wife in hand and a family impending, it just meant that we were money isn't always the right answer. And I mean, obviously, I didn't realise how many games we were going to win at Wigan, but to be fair, I wanted to play under Lowe. I mean, that was the big part of it.
Absolutely. And, that 86-87 season can only be described as an incredible one for you. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think you played 41 matches during the season, something like that, 21 tries. You won the Lancashire Cup, scored a try and a victory over Warrington in the John Player Trophy final. You beat Warrington again in the Premiership Trophy final. You won the championship. Like, do you look at that and you think, yeah, that was a pretty smart decision, going back on your word.
Yeah, but did you notice I didn't hear you say we didn't go to Wembley, did we?
No, you didn't go to Wembley, mate.
No. So that was the only one we lost. Well, the one we didn't sort of win. And I remember that game quite vividly too, because we were playing Oldham, who were a pretty good team. But if anybody's been to Oldham, which is the top of the Pennines, and I think it was a night game. There was frost on the ground. It was a really intimidating place to go. The wind was howling, as it does up in the Pennines. And we played against a Oldham team that wanted it more than us. We didn't turn up in the right frame of mind, and we rightly got beaten. But I'll never forget the chanting their players got when they came back into not in the change rooms, back into the clubhouse after the game. Because back in those days, you used to get together, have a few drinks, have something to eat, with both teams. And, that just haunted me for, the rest of that season. And I didn't want to ever feel like that again. And I think that was a catalyst for us to go on and win, well, for me, another 7 Wembleys. I'm pretty sure that was, one of the big reasons that we never took any team for granted after that.
I bet. Now, I will come back to all your Wembleys, but I want to ask you a really interesting question that happened in 1987 is you were a guest player for the South Island side, because I love South Island Rugby League. I'm all about it. So how did this all come about? How good was it playing alongside all the Southern boys like Asini Famano, Wayne Wallace, Brendan and Russell Tuna, to name a few? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, that was pretty weird. Well, it was just, you used to come back and, from the UK and you'd need to play a few games in readiness for the test match. You wouldn't want to lose your match fitness. So a lot of the, players came from Auckland naturally, and everybody came back and played for Auckland. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. Right? I want to play for one of the other provinces. So how I got in contact with somebody from the South Island, I can't remember. But that's how it happened. I just wanted to go and play for somebody else. And you know what? The game that I went back to play, the team that I played against that time,
I'm pretty sure it was Auckland, and they pumped it.
It was Auckland, yes. And we nearly beat them as well. Yeah, I remember, the game was played at Greymouth, and very hospitable place to go. And I mean, but the way I was received from, I had my young son was around. He's only about 2 at the time, I think. And we flew from Westport to Greymouth in this little 4-seater plane, and just all those crazy things you did in those days. And just the warmth that I was received with by the mainlanders was just amazing. And we nearly beat Auckland that day. I mean, they went out to a pretty healthy lead. They had a young Kevin Edo, who was obviously in his prime back in those days. And but then we mounted a bit of a comeback.
Okay.
And then I'm sure that we played an extra 20 minutes. I reckon the timekeeper kept the game going, because the longer he kept it going, the more chance we had of winning. But anyway, I think after about an extra 20 minutes of injury time, he had to say, no, enough's enough. I think the referee did, actually. There's no way you could get the timekeeper to call time on that game.
Oh, well, we're very proud to have you in our South Island side for one game.
Hey, and you know what, Dave, too? I also, and that, you may not have it in your notes, but I also played for Cumbria against the Australian side.
I did know that, and I was going to ask about that at one point. No, let's talk about
Oh,
it
you
now.
did? Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, you're good. Let's talk about it. How did that come
Well,
about?
I mean, again, I mean, nobody had ever outside of Cumbria had played for Cumbria before.
Okay.
But I don't know, is it timing again? But yeah, they managed to put me in the side, and again, we nearly beat the Australians that night. We put up a really good game, and that was at Carlisle. It was played as well. So
Yes.
yeah, really really good memories from that game.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. All right, let's get back to 87. Yeah, would be the year the Kiwis knocked over the Kangaroos at Lang Park. Famous victory. You guys had a massively underrated side. There's only a few of you guys who are playing like Winfield Cup or in the Super League England comp. Did anyone actually give you a chance of winning that in the media, the papers, the radio? Like, because you played a pretty
No,
star-studded Aussie side.
yeah, but do they ever? To be fair, against an Aussie team?
That's true. That's
Right,
true. Good point.
I mean, these days they do because it's very, very similar the strength in the teams these days. But back in those days, as you say, we still had a lot of players, playing in the local competitions, in New Zealand. So, but yeah, it's just the old thing, isn't it? Once they put that black jersey on, you grow another pair of legs, and
Yeah, man.
it was just it's very much about pride, and I think that's a big thing, pride in how you perform, and pride in what you're doing and who you're representing. I think that's really important, if you're going on to beat the likes of an Australian side, because they can probably put out two or three teams of similar strength,
Yeah.
and back in those days, we couldn't have too many injuries if we had a chance of trying to beat them.
Yeah, man, that was one of the great wins. Was it Ross Taylor, the Cads had scored a try? I think he had Adrian Shelford. Shane Cooper kicked a wobbly old field goal. I had him on the
It
podcast
was
as well.
wobbly too, yeah.
Champion bloke. Mark
Yeah.
Hoodle, I've had a chat with him, and
Yeah.
he said he slept in his number ones like all night or something. It's just so ecstatic that he
Yeah.
got up and
No,
got the win.
I mean, when you said before too, did you expect it? And yeah, I mean, I remember, Graeme Lowe saying too. He says, a lot of the teams are beaten before they play Australia.
Okay.
Back in the day, they had the Rugby League Week magazine, and
Yes.
they'd have Mal Meninga all covered in Vaseline and liniment and liniment, and just looking all muscly on the cover of the thing, And he said they're only human,
Yep.
You knock them down, they bleed, they hurt. So but it just you got to do it for 80 minutes, and quite a couple of times we managed to do that.
Amazing game. Amazing, mate. I love it. Right. Challenge Cup stuff. Let's do it. 1988, you go to your first Challenge Cup final, 94,000 people, probably the biggest club match to date for you. You run out to a packed Wembley Stadium. You've got the Iro brothers, which you mentioned, the late Adrian Shelford, guided by the man, Graeme Lowe. Like, how massive was it to finally step out onto Wembley and go out there and basically smash Halifax? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, it was a real dream come true for me. And I mean, I know a lot of people say that, but I remember my dad, when I was growing up, it would have been 7, 8, 9, whatever it was. He used to get me up in the early hours of the morning to watch the FA Cup final and the Challenge Cup final, which is the rugby league one.
Nice.
And the football I wasn't so bothered about, the soccer. But the rugby league, I just thought, wouldn't that be amazing for me to be able to play in that atmosphere, in that arena? And it became not a passion, a dream of mine to be able to achieve that. And yeah, we finally made it. And I remember, actually getting on the bus, and we got to Wembley Way, and that was back in those days, like you had about a kilometre drive through all the fans right up to the changing room. And I remember the tens and thousands of people, yelling and just waving at the bus and chanting. And I remember Graeme Lowe in that first one, he put the the music to the Rocky movie on.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so, yeah, we were just so pumped up, going through these people, and you got off and you're seeing the dads and the granddads with their grandchildren, their children on their shoulders. Come on, you just could see how much it meant to them. And I thought to myself, man, there's no way you want to come to this arena and play poorly. You know what I mean? And I remember waiting in the tunnel, and I didn't know what was going to happen to myself. How do you react to walking out? And I think it was over 100,000 people. I know the official crowd was about 94, as you say, but they found out that there was about 10,000 people outside just before kickoff. So they had to open the gates just to let them in, right? Whether they had tickets or not, but there was just a big queue outside. So there's over 100,000. So all those people back in those days, they were around they sat around the Greyhound track. Okay. And, that was the only place that was left, for them to sit. And so when we got the nod from the guy at the BBC, because obviously everything's controlled by the TV, even back in those days, and we got the nod to walk out, I remember this explosion of noise and colour just hit you. Yeah. And it was just like my legs were just sort of coming off the ground. It was just like I wasn't even touching the ground as I was walking out. It was just It was just the adrenaline, the atmosphere. But it's something we talked about too. Before the game, I was lucky that I'd had other players in my team that had played at Wembley before, either for Great Britain or previous Challenge Cups. And they gave me some good advice that, I carried with me to the day I retired. And that was that, play the game, not the occasion.
Right? Yeah.
Because the occasion, I remember that we played Halifax. They had won the year before. They may be sort of a little bit more relaxed in their second year there, and they were waving to their girlfriends and their wives in the stand and that. But we were just so focused on our job. What was our job to win this game?
Right.
And actually, we played really well. We did. And we ended up fairly comfortable victory. And and I just remember walking up those steps and thinking how lucky I was that my dream had come true. And lifting that trophy. Yeah, it was special moments.
And what about scoring a try? You've probably pictured that in your mind your whole life since you've learned about the Challenge Cup. Scoring a try in your first Challenge Cup final. That's the stuff dreams are made of.
Yeah, it's not easy too in the team I was playing with, because we had so many good players and a lot of good try scorers. Ellery could score. He could score whenever he wanted. Sean Edwards was an amazing support player, and they're just the team was littered with guys that could score tries, and not least Kevin Edo, who's I think scored 2 or 3 that day.
And he's a big boy.
I'm glad he's on my side.
Yeah. So what is it about the Challenge Cup though in the UK? Like, what makes it so special for the British people? Like, 'cause we don't do it in the NRL. I wish we kind of did actually, but what is it about the Challenge Cup?
Oh, it's playing at Wembley,
right?
And everybody's got a chance of going, right? Because it's a knockout competition.
Yeah.
And I remember sometimes, we would maybe play Halifax at Halifax, and that's up in the Pennines as well, or you might play Warrington in a semi-final, who are really aggressive. They had a team one time in a semi-final that we played them. I think they had Kevin Tamati in there. They had Les Boyd in there. They had this, and a couple of really sort of big, tough British guys as well. And, you've got to turn up in those knockout games, because there's no next week unless you win. And so to get through, 7 lots of knockout football, 7 years of knockout football, and always make it to the final is no mean feat. And I remember back in those days, they used to have a couple of staff members from Wembley, just looking after your ice and just making sure the changing rooms were all right. And I was always the last one out of the changing rooms. And I always remember the first time I said, and they got just saying goodbye to the guys and thank them for helping us. And I said, I'll see you next year.
Okay.
And I didn't really think I would be going next year, but after that, I kept on saying it,
Right.
And well, in '94, which was my last Wembley, I didn't say it because I was coming back to the Warriors to captain them in the first season. Yeah.
All right, mate. Do you pinch yourself though when you look back? 7 Challenge Cups on the bounce, like it's pretty much never
Yeah.
probably going to be done ever again. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, I do, and yeah, it's one of those sort of things that, as you say, is not probably going to happen again. But I don't know, records are there to be taken, aren't they? And
For
but
sure.
the game has moved on in so many different ways as well. And but we had a team of champions. We had a team of winners. So. And sometimes, we had the flash. We had Martin O'Fire who could run 100 meters in 9 point whatever seconds. We had,
Crazy.
Ellery Hanley who was, Superman, but even better. We had Andy Gregory, Sean Edwards, Joe Lydon, Dennis Betts, Andy Platt, all these amazing British players, and obviously a whole lot of really fantastic New Zealand players as well. Vainga Tugamala, Frano Bodica, and those rugby union players that came to us, they became better players too. Just with the extra training that they would be doing, and so Inga, he became an amazing centre. Everybody thought he was just a barging sort of winger, but he had a lot of skill to him as well.
Yeah.
And then Frano would kick goals from everywhere, and so. We had a lot of talented players, but talent doesn't beat Warrington or St. Helens on New Year's Day or Boxing Day or whenever you played them, because you turn up at their places and man, there's just so much rivalry over there, and you've got to really play tough footy to beat them. And sometimes you might beat them 6-2, 6 whatever 4, or you might beat them 33-10, or it doesn't matter. It's just that you got to find something within you. And as I said before, it was really the not letting your teammates down. That was a big part of where we were at. And we didn't always get on. I mean, I didn't do what Ellery and Sean Edwards did. They would go after a training session on Thursday, go down to London for the nightclubs and things like that. I'd just have a few beers with the boys and, and we'd see each other on Saturday, for a Saturday morning training session or something. But it was a very special time. And boy, I'm just so lucky to have so many good memories with them.
It's absolutely incredible. It honestly is. So you won the Man of Steel award during your time of all these Challenge Cups and every other cup that you won. How rewarding was it? Beating your body up every week, putting in the dedication, the training to always remain at your peak. For such a long period of time. And you're considered the best player in the game for that season. Does that all pay off in that moment when you win such a big award?
I mean, personal recognition is nice, but in a team sport, you're only as good as the people around you. And I mean, there was a lot of competition too for that Man of Steel, and not least from my teammates. And I look back now, and I think, that's a nice recognition of a lot of the work that you do put in. To running up One Tree Hill as a 12-year-old, and and getting up with my dad and his mates on a Sunday morning, and going around Howick and around South Auckland there on my runs and things like that. So there was a lot of work that got me to that position. So that's what I recognise.
Yeah, man. Absolutely deserved it for sure. So also another big moment. Back to your Kiwis career. You captained the Kiwis in the World Cup final against Australia in 1988. How special is it to perform a haka and in front of your home crowd at Eden Park? I know you didn't get the result, but how special was a moment like that? When you look back at your career.
I suppose that wasn't. I mean, it should be, but it wasn't as special because we just didn't turn up that day.
Okay.
we let ourselves down, and that was one of the few sort of I suppose poor sort of games that I've been involved in. To be fair, because I mean you can still play well and lose,
Yep.
but we just didn't play well at all that day, and
Okay.
I don't know why. Just I can't put my finger on it. You mentioned the haka. Maybe we put too much emphasis on other things and instead of the winning of that game. And and we got ambushed by the Aussies. They turned up in a better frame of mind, and I mean it's not a great memory for me, but I suppose I should be honoured to obviously captain my country in a World Cup final. But yeah.
All right, man. All right.
I'm a bit greedy. I just try and remember the good stuff.
The good stuff. Right, man. Talking of good stuff, right? This is what I've been dying to talk about. The Auckland Warriors are announced as one of 4 new clubs joining the 1995 ARL season. Obviously, John Mona, your coach, he's signed as the inaugural coach for the Warriors. Did you have any inkling at the time when he was signed as coach that he'd be interested in bringing you home to sign with the Warriors and be the captain?
You want me to be honest?
Yeah, perfectly honest. Let's go.
Yeah. None whatsoever. Not even Dean, have you thought about coming back with me or just nothing at all. No hint of anything, right?
Okay.
I was sort of in my last year or so having a few injury sort of concerns, just picking up niggly little things, and just sort of hampering my ability to play consistently, and I thought, well, maybe it's time for me to retire anyway, and maybe John thinks that as well. So I never gave it a thought. I thought, oh yeah, I'm probably too old for that now, so it's probably past me. So that's disappointing, by a couple of years or whatever. And then one day after training, I was going back to my car, and my car was next to John's, and we both came out at the same time. And he turned around to me and says, Dean, he says, I want you to come back and captain the Warriors in that first year. And I sort of laughed, and I thought, well, this guy's joking, isn't he? Yeah. I don't know why I thought he was joking. I just because it came out of the blue.
Okay.
I hadn't really given it a thought. I had no reason to think about it. But then he obviously planted the seed, and then I thought, well, wow.
Yeah.
Well. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be as big as it did become, but okay. I thought it'd be something special.
Yeah.
I was a little bit worried that, as I say, maybe my best footy was behind me. I was a little bit concerned that could they put a competitive team together? Okay. But I knew I'd have a regret if I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right. So, like I normally do, I met it head on, and I said yes.
Amazing. So, was it a no-brainer? Like, especially once, like, Ian Robson, like, he'd spun the vision of the Warriors. He's got the gift of the gab, from what I hear. How convincing was he? And when you realised the vision, were you just like, yeah, I absolutely have to have one last crack at this professional football career?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he secured the deal. He flew over and. As you say, but he was a good administrator. You know what I mean? He was just so slick. Right. He was just really a lot of time for a lot of people sort of say bad things about him, about spending money, etc. But to me, he did his job. He brought the Auckland Warriors to the country. You know what I mean? Yeah. He the marketing, the promotional stuff. He did his job. He did it as well as he could, and I think that he deserves more credit too. For not for where they are now, but for that first year, because it's like anything in that first year. I mean, especially when you've got to get supporters on side. You have to be a pretty good team to for the supporters to get on your side. And while we did have a good blend of experience in that, there was a lot of unknown about how we were going to perform, and not less to say in that first game as well.
Absolutely. And just touching on the whole media hype and everything, Because at the time, would it be fair to say rugby league wasn't a minority sport, but it wasn't up there with cricket and rugby union, and
No.
even I'd almost argue netball was more popular, watching the Silver Ferns, and
Mm.
where
Mm.
was rugby league at, especially like provincial level in comparison to rugby union?
Well, I think where it's always been back in those days, and it was just a low level sport. I mean, when you beat the Aussies, obviously people take notice. But
Yep.
those test matches only happen a couple of times a year, if that. If you're playing the Aussies. But so to play the Australians, in that competition was something that a lot of the supporters had probably dreamt about most of their lives, and finally it was coming true. So you can understand why it took off. To me, it was just a pipe dream when I was growing up. I used to go down the road from where I am now, and in the city, and I used to watch the VHS games in the Birdcage. The pub down the city by opposite Victoria Park, and I used to watch the games there, have a feed of steak and eggs, and and that was my only way to watch the Australian competition. And
Come a long way.
I've come a long way, all right. And but it was, I mean, did I ever think that we'd have a New Zealand team? No, I didn't for some reason. I just thought, there's no way that we're going to be allowed to play in that competition. But obviously, it's the best thing that's ever happened.
100%, 100%. Right, man. Like, you've got the pre-seasons happened, the team's starting to gel. We had to build this whole thing from scratch. You get to the first game. What's the build-up like? The whole, warming up, the walking through the tunnel, the big moment. Like, describe it all for me. Like, it gives me, tingles and shivers whenever I watch the footage because I'm a die-hard rugby league fan. But for you, mate, you're the first captain. You're walking out, leading the side. Like, talk us through that whole experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was good because I always knew that I was going to be walking through that tunnel that night. So obviously we're down there most days at Mount Smart, and I always pictured myself, walking through there, and because I've been used to a lot of big games previously in my career at Wigan, and obviously test matches for New Zealand. I mean, it didn't daunt me, but I still wasn't ready for what happened.
Okay.
I mean, the day itself. I mean, I remember John Money saying that our last training session. Go and do something. Do something that where you're not sort of around. All the stuff on TV and that or whatever. I went to the movies and there was an advert before the movies of the Warriors playing. So I couldn't, I went home, put it on. I think we had 3 channels in those days. I put it on TVNZ 1, 2, 3, all about the Warriors. So I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't get away.
Read a book.
Yeah, I know. And so it was huge. I mean, there was billboards, around the city. It was just crazy, and we were. I don't know. And it's hard. You had to keep your feet on the ground. I mean, that wasn't hard for me, but I always reminded our players that we've done nothing yet. And while the first game's not going to define us, it's certainly going to make a statement.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm waiting in the tunnel that night. I could hear all the noise going on while we were warming up on the number 2 field, and I thought, wow, this is a big thing going on here. And then standing there, and I remember again, it was like my first Wembley. It was like, there was 34,000 people there or something. It felt like 100,000.
Wow.
It just went off, and again, that's that same feeling I had walking out at Wembley, just floating out, but just mindful of why we're there too, and you don't want to enjoy all this, what's going on, and then go out and play like mugs, do you? So,
well, you didn't. Yeah, you went out there and you absolutely gave it to the Broncos. You got unlucky in the end with Alan Langer magic, But mate, you guys absolutely made a statement. I was lucky enough to have. I went to Feti Taiwa's home just a few days ago when I was on a bit of a road trip with my wife. Did a podcast with him. Asked him about that first try set up for Phil Blake. And just getting back in that moment, just gives me chills. It's amazing. You guys really performed so well in the end, really.
Yeah, we did, which was really heartening for us because they say we were the unknown team. We didn't know how we were going to perform and under that sort of spotlight and against a team that was obviously, the previous champions. So, and a team full of superstars, that it was no mean team, that Broncos team. And
stacked.
Yeah, it was. I mean my only relief was Steve Renouf wasn't playing, so I wouldn't have to mark him in the latter part of my career. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it's probably the only game I've played in and lost and been fairly happy with.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean that's hard for me to say that, but I thought
I get it though.
Yeah. I was really worried it could go the other way too, and I was, I just didn't know. And for us to put in an effort and a performance like that, it was really encouraging.
I think it set you guys up nicely because you had a few unlucky results and then you got stripped of those 2 points, but with a win against the Magpies. But then you guys went on a run, like you're just toweling up sides left, right, and centre, and then you have Stacey Jones make his debut and far out. What an amazing setup. Initial season for the Warriors, and now look at them going so well. Now you set up the legacy, and it's unbelievable. When you look back, how do you feel when you look back? When you look at the Warriors now, and then you're the first captain of the side. You must look back and just smile and go, "Wow, I was part of that."
Well, I mean, what I did then is still important, but it has no bearing on how they're playing now. That's come about from a lot of years of making some good decisions. That what they're doing at the moment, they're getting their succession planning in place. They're putting all these younger, and that's always been something that we couldn't compete with the Aussies. Is that our younger players aren't conditioned for NRL football properly, right? Because they don't play in a hard enough competition. Whereas an Australian player coming through their system, if they're played, even made it as a 19-year-old in the NRL, they've been challenged at 18, 17, 16, all the way down. They've always been challenged, and that makes you a better player. And now our young players are starting to get that with what the Warriors are putting in place now. So that was a biggie for me once they started investing in that. And you're seeing some of there's a couple of the back rowers that are playing coming through now. They'll get better as well. Don't forget, this is their first real year of playing NRL footy. How good are they going to be in the future years? And there's more to come. You can bet your bottom dollar there's more to come. And then you can just go and cherry pick your best players, right? Yeah. You don't have to go out and buy a whole lot of Aussie players. If you develop your own, it puts you in a good place because you can make good decisions then, because you can let somebody go if you've got another player coming through. And, obviously salary cap, managing that is very complicated. But having good, strong juniors really helps the whole system.
And that's the whole vision, right? To have a mostly New Zealand based, or like players from New Zealand if possible. Sometimes you have to pick a few Aussies in there to, just to maybe fill a hole of what you might be missing. But that's the dream. Like Leka Halasima, Dimitri Vaimanga, and Jacob Laban. Oh my God, these guys are phenomenal players.
Well, that's right. And as I said before, how good are they going to be? Oh, mate, you don't really hit your prime until probably at least 2 or 3 years of NRL.
I've not been this excited about a back rower since Ali Lauansisi, I think. Leka Halasima for me, he's phenomenal. I can't believe how good he is, and it's his first year in the top grade.
Yeah, and I think too. I said to my wife the other day when I was watching him, I said, he's on a really good contract now, so it's made a massive difference to his life and his family's life as well, and that's what you like to see. That through hard work, because he didn't get there by mistake. Through hard work, he's he's reaping the rewards now. And as long as they don't get carried away, as long as they keep their feet on the ground, because it's the old, and I used to follow this all my career. You're only as good as your last game.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Speaking of your last game, you pulled stumps at the end of 1995, hung up the old boots, but you did go back to Leeds. Did you play one last game for Leeds when you were sort of coaching over there?
Oh, I did, and this was the most stupid thing I've ever done. Although it did get the result. Yeah, we had a tough year. I mean, I remember I got back there, and it was probably the worst thing that happened to me is that I went back as an assistant coach under a guy called Doug Lawton. He was
I know Doug Lawton. Yes,
yeah, he was a famous coach, and
he was the witness coach for a while.
Yes, he was. And then he went to Leeds, and they were, looking for an assistant coach. And I still had a relationship with the Leeds sort of board and things like that. So I rang them and said, I'm thinking about, coaching. How about me being Doug's assistant for a couple of years, just to sort of learn my trade. And they said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. We signed the papers. I flew over there. On the way over, I arrived, and the chairman welcomed me to Leeds and says, Dean, he says, I've got some news for you. You're now head coach because Doug Lawton's resigned.
Welcome to the club.
So I remember meeting the players the first time I met them, and I said, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell do I do now? I had no idea really about coaching, I'd never really thought about it much. I thought, well, I've got to do, I've got to do my apprenticeship first.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got thrown into the hot seat, and it was tough. I thought, well, Leeds have always got money, and and I thought, well, they've always not been afraid to spend it. Maybe I haven't always spent it in the right place, but I thought if I could make some, good recruitment decisions. So I managed to get, it was about $100,000 off them to buy Barry McDermott from Wigan.
Oh, yes.
And,
yes.
Barry, tough front rower. And so I bought him. And the next day I got a phone call, and it says it was a chairman of the Leeds board. And he says, oh, Dean, I want you to come and meet us. I said, oh, yeah, okay. So it was just a meeting. And as soon as I got there, he says, oh, we haven't got any money left. You can't go out spending that money. I mean, I don't know how I got that $100,000, but how do you get $100,000? And then all the next day's them saying they haven't got any money. Anyway.
Out the piggy bank, mate.
Well, and he said, well, we're over $1 million in debt at the moment, and we can't see a way out of it. And I thought, oh no, so I can't buy myself out of it. So I had to start bringing young players in. We were losing games with 20 seconds to go, 10 seconds. Everything that could go wrong went wrong that year. It was just, it was one of those years. And anyway, the second year came around, and I thought maybe I probably thought if I stick with it, I'll probably get sacked anyway, right?
Yeah.
Although Gary Hetherington, he was a new owner that came in, one of the new owners, and he said, Dean, I said, I'll give you another year. He said, no problem. I can see some promise and all that. And I thought to myself, nah. I said, it's maybe not for me, the head coaching, because it's not for everybody. And I thought, no, I'd like to step down, and I'd like to coach the younger players, because I wanted to have more of an influence on developing the young players. And so he agreed with that. And that was fine. They got a new head coach in, and I did that for the next couple of years, looking after the likes of Kevin Sinfield, Rob Burrow, Danny Maguire, all these players that went on to win so much for Leeds and other teams. And that was just highlight of my post-career is working with those young players. And it was a lot of fun, and, and that. And but in this particular year that I played, I was looking at the team, and I thought, if I put that centre in, because I knew it was a must-win game. It was against Catalan, I think. And if we didn't win that game, there's a chance that we could get relegated.
Oh, wow, really?
Leeds getting relegated, especially with me at the helm. I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And I'm looking at doing the team selection. I thought to myself, I could play better than that centre that I'm going to put in. And I hadn't done much training or anything, and And it was just a stupid thing because mostly I forgot that I was going in for a vasectomy that week, right? So I go in on I think it was the Tuesday or Wednesday, get the vasectomy, and then I play on the Saturday. So to say I was a little bit cautious going into tackles. Anyway, we won the game.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know it was a crazy thing. I mean, when I was doing that decision about putting myself in, I was just being bloody minded. You know what I mean? I was just being, not even thinking, not thinking of what I booked in, or not thinking of me not being fit enough or whatever. But anyway, it had the desired effect. We won the game and we didn't get relegated. So, but yeah, not one of my most enjoyable games, that particular one.
Great way to round off the old playing career. Why not? That's all good. Right, man.
Well, yeah, I suppose it was. Yeah.
Right, I'll finish off with a couple of fun questions that I ask everybody. What is your favorite TV show or movie?
Ooh. These are hard ones for me because I forget. I watch a lot of stuff streaming, but then I forget what they're called. Favorite movie? Oh, probably One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Probably too old for some people.
I might have to find that one. All righty. Okay, last question, man. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be for Dean Bell?
I'm going to be greedy, and it's going to be a tomahawk steak, right, with crayfish.
Oh, mate, that's surf and turf right there. Beautiful.
Yep, surf and turf. That's the one.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Absolute dream come true for me to meet you, mate. I absolutely enjoyed it. My face hurts from smiling the whole time, and some great stories in there, man. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, cheers, Dave. I've actually forgotten more than I remember these days. So actually, yeah, the memory banks do come back after a while. So thanks for helping me with that.
No worries, man. No worries. Okay. Thank you to everyone out there for watching. I've been your host, Dave. This has been the one and only Dean Bell, Warrior number 1. We've been back in the day, and we'll see you next time for Kickoff.
Full time.